brothers were so respected that when Sherman came down to destroy and burn Atlanta to the ground and Savannah to the ground, he came across Chub Town. And the Chub brothers saw the Union Army coming. And they went out and they stopped General Sherman's army before it got to Chub Town. And they parleyed with him and told Sherman who they were. And Sherman went around Chub Town and did not touch it and destroyed everything else that he came in contact with.
When people ask me what Chub Town is, I just tell them it's a place where my ancestors started. They were freed slaves, and they pretty much had their own sufficient town. And just tell them like the whole history behind it and what it means to me. Back then they had like their own fire station. They had, the church is still there. That creek, my dad used to always say he used to play in the creek all the time. The church is still there, the cemetery is there. You just feel the history when you step foot. My dad used to always talk about it growing up, but I never believed him because I was like, you don't have a city named after you. Why you know what I'm saying? I just thought he was just talking junk. And then I remember we went to go see it in high school, and I was just blown away really because, I mean, it's not much there, but it's so much history there. You see all the brothers who were there that founded it. We went there again, unfortunately, when my granddad passed, and he was buried in Chub Town as well. So, I mean, it's definitely a meaningful piece to have him buried there because that's somebody besides my dad that I looked up to a lot. I had a lot of conversations with my grandfather, and when he passed away, it was definitely hard for me, my brother, and my dad. So having him in that sacred space, I feel like is very very good. A lot of my identity is intertwined into Chub Town because my dad he raised us off the principles that those same founding fathers had, and I feel like that shaped me and my brother to the men we are today. I feel like we have a very unique name, a very unique background. It's just to have more people interested, have more people knowing where we came from and how we were raised. I feel like using this platform to do that is going to be amazing.
Now, isn't that a story? But you never heard it, did you? You know why? Because I want you to think you will never, ever have an option here in America. Everybody hates you. Everybody's a racist. That if you stand up as a strong man, you still going to not have a fair shake. That is a lie. The strong white men in America always respected the strong black men and Native American men and Hispanic men that they came in contact with. It was always mano a mano, man against man. But if you were weak, they'd stomp your behind in the ground. It was social Darwinism on steroids here in America, y'all. You better believe that. So when these Europeans would come all the way from Europe and spend their last dime to cross the Atlantic Ocean, to come to a country whose language they don't know, to come here and work and say, I will never go back to my homeland ever again. You had to believe they were some type of tough. Even when it came down to the fight of freedom, we still see it differently than many of the white men and the free black men that fought like during the American Revolution. It's a story that I heard. It's quite arresting. That kind of explained to me how the men that fought for their freedom saw the men that would not fight for their freedom. George Washington had been in the wilderness fighting for America's freedom for 7 years. 7 years away from home, his best years. He had his manservant with him, who was with him for the whole duration of the time, a black man. Legend has it that this black man had saved George Washington's life at least 5 times. And when they came back to Mount Vernon, George Washington gave this black man his freedom. Black man asked George Washington, what about the other slaves that worked on Mount Vernon? Why weren't they set free? And George Washington basically looked at him tersely and said, because they did not fight for it. During the American Revolution, the British put out a decree saying if you come fight for us, at the end of the war, you get your freedom. The Americans did the same thing. Fight and get your freedom. And these slaves decided to stay on the plantation and work. They decided to be slaves. What did I tell you? Slavery is a choice. Let them stay where they decided. And he looked at them with utter contempt. End of the Civil War. The Confederates have been gone fighting in the Civil War for almost 5 years. All the white men going off the plantations fighting in the wars for over 5 years. The slaves are on the plantation with the women and the children and the very old men. They could have left anytime they wanted to. They could have fought anytime they wanted to. But the Confederate men, the young, strong men between the ages of maybe 16 and 50, they were gone fighting. Civil War ends at Appomattox. All the Confederate men that are still alive come back home. Many of them that survived got the legs cut off and eye out and one of the arms gone. I mean, they're in bad shape. They stumble back home and they look, and there's old John, who the last time they saw him was picking cotton, is out in the field cutting the jig, talking about he free. Didn't fight for it. Didn't shed any blood for it. And these men held these slaves in utter contempt, and that's where the red shirts and the Ku Klux Klan came from. Not saying that I justify that. I'm saying that if you're going to be free, you better get a gun. And you better be willing to fight and kill for your freedom. And that's how you earn their respect. I remember reading about the Mayflower, man, how these jokers suffered to get over here to America. I watched two great documentaries by Ken Burns. I suggest you watch them. One is called The West. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It tells you what these guys did to cut across all the way to California and to Oregon. And you hear some of those stories about people dying of dysentery and Indians trying to kill them and Indians killing them. It's just amazing what these people did to carve out an existence here in the United States of America. And you look at the way most black folk have gone about it, going to government, demanding government put a gun to the heads of white people. And then they are amazed they don't have the respect of these men whose respect they desire. All the respect can be gotten. My father has it. Hell, I have it. My brothers have it. But it's earned.